Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Made it to the end of another week. And I want to talk a little bit more about the situation the Seahawks currently find themselves in with their roster. I made a video a couple days ago breaking down how I believe the roster is a significant improvement from last season, and I stand by that. But I want to talk a little bit more about the defensive line because that is the area of this team that people are really trying to figure out here. The thing that is really confusing them. Well, maybe it's not so much confusion at this point, it's more like revulsion, because it looks like it's just not going to be that good. And look, I think it's completely justified. I don't have a big problem with the team approaching things the way that they did. I don't have a problem with the team taking the path that they have taken. I've explained many times why I think that it was probably the right thing to do. But all that being said, nothing that I just said there changes the fact that this defensive line is going to be a problem this year, right now. And when I say problem, I mean problem for us as Seahawks fans. I mean, I broke it down in the video the other day. I'll break it down one more time, though. We got Dre'Mont Jones, and look, I think Dre'Mont Jones is great. I think he's going to be a star for us. I think he was basically a star in Denver. Great player, very disruptive, big fan. He was one of my favorite free agents this year. Thrilled to get him. But then you quickly get down to Jarran Reed, who is at this point in his career a journeyman, starting at the other side. Then you've got a fifth-round rookie in Mike Morris, who I like, still a fifth-round rookie. You've got Miles Adams, who I like, but he's been in the league a couple years now and has done very, very little, so he's unproven. And right now I have Jonah Tavai lingering around on the defensive end as like a fifth end on the line. I don't know if he actually makes the roster or not, but either way, that's a UDFA rookie. And then at nose tackle, you've got Cameron Young, a fourth-round rookie, who I wasn't necessarily in love with pre-draft anyway, and Robert Cooper, a UDFA rookie. So there's only so much lipstick I can put on this pig. I think that this team was kind of left holding the bag on building the defensive line as much as they wanted to this offseason. I think that there was probably an attempt to draft guys who would have helped tremendously on the defensive line, like Khalid Cansey. We clearly tried to talk ourselves into Jalen Carter and didn't do it, and couldn't bring ourselves to do it. We tried to probably get Keanu Benton and guys like I'm sorry, not Cameron Young, but Byron Young from Alabama, players like that. And it just didn't work out, so we're left here with this defensive line, but what do we do about it? And I want to talk about one of the silver linings here in this video, because I was having a look at it. Because obviously everybody right now is talking about Shelby Harris. Shelby. Let's bring in Shelby Harris. He can be probably a starter on this team and allow us to push people down the depth chart a little bit, take a little bit of the pressure off some of the young guys, take a little bit of pressure off some of the more middling players we have, and basically give us another opportunity to rotate players in on that defensive line without sacrificing too much in ability. But thinking about Shelby Harris, and don't get me wrong, still a great option. Shelby Harris is going to turn 32 in a couple of months here. Not that old. He's played 3-4 defensive end his whole career, so he fits right in. And I think he was good for us last year. I would love to bring in Shelby Harris, but thinking about Shelby Harris got me thinking, who else is available? And I want to make this video to kind of go over some of the options here, because as I was looking at it, I kind of found myself thinking, there are a lot. There's actually a lot that you can still do here as a team that is in need of defensive linemen, especially defensive linemen who can play in a 3-4. You've got guys like Shelby Harris, free agent. Here are some other guys who are still free agents going into 2020, going into the post-draft section of the offseason. You've got Matthew Ioannidis, still a free agent. He's got good size, good enough size to play in a 3-4. By the way, he's played in a 3-4 before. When he was in Washington, he spent some time as a 3-4 end. He had a 7.5 and an 8.5 sack season. He's only going to be 29 this year, so age is not really a big consideration. There's reason to believe he was a better player in a 3-4 than a 4-3, by the way. So this guy would be great. You got Michael Brockers, defensive tackle. He spent some time in a 3-4 as well. Not a ton, but spent some time with the Rams when they were running that 3-4, so he can do it. I'm not too concerned about that. He's only going to turn 33 in late December, by the way, so age not a huge consideration yet. You've got Akeem Hicks still out there. I was really surprised about this one because Akeem Hicks has always been a pretty nice and effective player on the defensive line. Spent a good amount of time in a 3-4 as well. I know he's bigger than the average 3-4 end, but that's what he does. And he's always done it fairly well. He is getting up there in age, but I'm really surprised he's still out there. And looking at all these guys, looking at all the guys who are still available, it got me thinking, this is not the worst area to have a need in going into the post-draft portion of the offseason, because there are so many guys available. Like, if you needed a quarterback, your best option right now is like Carson Wentz. If you need a wide receiver, your best option right now is Kenny Golladay. But you've got guys on the defensive line you can get. Guys like Dwayne Smoot from Jacksonville. He's a little undersized, but he's actually played 3-4 end before, back when Jacksonville was running the 3-4, and he was productive out of it. Had 6 sack seasons, seasons between 5 and 6 sacks now 4 years in a row for Jacksonville. Fairly productive, not a star or anything, but a good player. You got William Golston. He's got the right size for 3-4 end, played a long time for Tampa Bay here. Spent almost a decade on Tampa Bay's roster, making moderate, modest contributions. Not a star, but somebody who belongs on the field and can play. Chris Wormley, who's been playing for the Steelers. That's a team that understands a 3-4 defense. This guy played for the Ravens before in a 3-4 defense. Even played a little bit of nose tackle, but spent a lot of time at a 3-4 end. So this is another guy you could pick up. And I think all of these guys, everybody I mentioned, would be rotational. You would not bring them in to ice them on the bench. You're bringing them in to play. And I think they would probably be at least a little bit better than what you would expect out of a guy like a Miles Adams. In some cases, I think it would probably be a little bit better than Jaron Reed. I'm not super high on Reed. Not to say I'm super high on all of these guys, but Matthew Ioannidis, I think, would start. And a guy like Chris Wormley could absolutely take meaningful snaps and do positive things with them. You even got a guy like Christian Covington. You know, we're starting to drag the bottom of the barrel a little bit here, but Christian Covington has built a pretty decent career. Nothing huge. Last year did not play that much, only played in 4 games. But he belongs on a football field. He's serviceable. He's only 30 years old. He's 1 year removed from a season where he had a career high in tackles by far, 52. So he can be rotational. Even a guy like a Nick Williams. Guy who could probably play on the in a 3-4 no problem. He did it a couple years ago for Detroit. He's never been a huge numbers guy. He's never been hugely productive outside of that 1 year where he was in the Fangio defense. But hey, Fangio defense, sign me up for that. Good fit. You've even got a couple nose tackles still out there. And I know what Schneider recently said about how he believes that nose tackle is a position that is easily filled by rookies. So that, to me, is an indication that he's counting on Cameron Young and Robert Cooper to fill in there. But if you want to go get a veteran nose tackle, we still got a couple out there. Linval Joseph. Linval Joseph's had a very good career. Granted, he's not the player he used to be, but last year he was getting reps for a Super Bowl team. He was playing nose tackle for a Super Bowl team. The years before that, he was playing a lot of nose tackle for that Chargers team. That, okay, I guess they didn't make the playoffs last year, but, you know, he was legitimately playing defensive nose tackle. Even Justin Ellis, 350-pound behemoth of a man. Not going to turn 33 until near the end of the season. Still lingering around out there. You can get this guy genuine, legitimate nose tackle. So I looked at it and I was kind of surprised that all these guys haven't been signed yet. All these guys are still free agents, and it kind of got me thinking about how, like I said, this is not the worst situation to be in if you need help with your defensive line depth. Now, granted, I also kind of feel like we need help with our defensive line star power, because after Draymond Jones, we don't really have much of anything in that regard. I'm not expecting Jaron Reed to revive his 10-sack-a-year form. But the situation being what it is, the fact that you still have potential access to some legitimately good players who can start in this league and be effective starters, like Shelby Harris, like Matthew Ioannidis, and the fact that you can get quality depth, guys who can immediately probably take snaps from guys like Miles Adams and Tavai, Guys like Akeem Hicks, William Golston, Chris Wormley. It's definitely something we could do, we could improve on if we wanted to. And I don't know, maybe that's part of the strategy. Maybe this team decided, you know what, there are so many workable defensive linemen in free agency still, we're not going to prioritize it as much as some people think we should in the draft. Maybe we're just not really going to go that way because we don't need to, because we're going to free up some money. And by the way, let me address that real quick, because people are going to say we don't have the money for it. Right now, we don't. But we're going to have to do something to free up cap space. We're going to have to do something to free up cap space to sign our rookies. Like, that's already been decided. Like, we didn't trade down in the draft, not significantly anyway. So we, as of right now, don't have enough money to pay the rookies that we have. So we're going to have to do something. And I don't know what that something is. Could be extending Nwosu. Could be trading Nwosu. Could be restructuring Lockett. Could be moving money around with a guy like, Diggs even. Quandre Diggs. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. But we're going to have to do something. So as long as we have to do something to deal with that situation, really not going to be that hard to free up another couple $1,000,000 so you can bring in another good defensive lineman. Like, at this point, the guys that I mentioned in this video, even the good ones, how much money do you think they're going to get? It's after the draft. Like, these guys have been sitting on the market for well over a month now. These guys have to know that the market just isn't there for them, and if they want to play football this year, going to have to take what they can get. So I'm not really worried about the money part of it. We can create a couple $1,000,000 if one of these guys fits the bill for our needs. So those are some options that this team can take if they want to improve their depth and maybe even their star power a little bit, I would say, on the defensive line. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to get out of here. See you guys later. Go Hawks. But those are some remaining options to beef up a little bit down in the trenches.